As a renter, it is crucial to ensure that you're making an informed decision about the property you choose to rent. While general questions like monthly rent and lease term may have been answered, they don't necessarily give you the full picture. So in this video, we'll be covering the questions that will help you understand the rental property better and ensure a smooth and satisfactory renting experience. So whether you're a first-time renter or a seasoned professional, these questions will help you make an informed decision and find the right place for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 1, can you clarify the monthly rent and other fees or payments? This is probably one of the most important questions that a renter should always ask. There are a few things that this question could accomplish. The first thing that it will accomplish is that the landlord or property manager should give you an accurate and up-to-date monthly rent. Since rent prices, especially apartment prices, fluctuate often, you may be paying more than you should. For this reason, it is always good to make sure you are aware of what you will be paying. This question will also allow you to gain insight into any other payments the landlord is expecting. This could include late fees, utility bills, property taxes, or anything else. All of this is included in your budget, so it's essential that you are clear on everything. Number 2, how much is the security deposit? Since this security deposit can be a very large sum of money, it is important that you have noted to include it in your budget. By asking this question, you can also discuss the possibility of using security deposit insurance. This kind of insurance allows you to pay the security deposit the same way you pay rent every month. If you want to learn more about this kind of insurance, you can read about it in DoorLoop's security deposit blog post. Number 3, under what circumstances will you enter the property? This is an important question that both the landlord and the renter should be clear on. There are various state and local laws regarding this, so this could be a good chance to point out any red flags in the landlord. Most states require the landlord to give proper notice to the tenant before entering the property. This applies even when they are entering for an inspection or for maintenance. Number 4, how will I pay for utilities? If you found out from one of the previous questions that you will be personally responsible for paying utilities, it is important that you know exactly which ones you are paying for and how you will be paying for them. For example, the landlord may cover electric and gas, but you still have to pay for water and internet. To get an idea of how much you will be paying, you could take a look at the water, electric, and gas appliances. These will often tell you how much it costs per month for regular usage. If not, you can politely ask the landlord for an estimate of how much it costs per month. They typically have that information, or if not, they can ask other tenants in similar units how much they pay. Number 5, what are the application criteria and what does the screening process consist of? Rather than going with the flow, it is important that renters know exactly what this process is like. This means asking about any background checks, screening fees, or anything else. By doing this, the renter has a clear idea of what to expect before being able to rent out the apartment. It is also important to inquire about the credit report the landlord will run and whether it is a soft or hard inquiry. If the landlord does not know the difference, it is likely that the credit report will hurt your credit. Number 6, what is the parking situation on the property? For many people, having a good parking situation is extremely important. If the renter has a car and lives in a busy neighborhood, not having parking within a property could be a deal breaker. Especially for buildings in the middle of cities, driving around the building searching for street parking may not be appealing. There is also the possibility that the tenant must pay for parking. This usually applies to an apartment building that has a parking garage within it. So if you own a car, make sure you include parking in your apartment hunt and only search for apartment complexes with parking in them. Number 7, what is the pet policy? Finding out whether or not there are pets allowed on the property is essential for those renters who own pets. It is especially important to ask about these policies when renting an apartment as they get more complicated. After being told that pets are allowed in the building, make sure to ask about any restrictions on the type of pet. This is because some landlords restrict some breeds or weight of the pet. After everything is cleared, you may move on to the next question. Which brings us to number 8, how much is the monthly pet rent/pet fee? If the apartment is allowing your pet to stay, you will most likely be charged for it. It is important that you are clear on exactly which pet fees you will be charged for having the pet. The pet deposit is typically a few $100s and is paid when the renter is moving in. Number 9, are early lease terminations allowed? If you are signing a month-to-month lease, this does not really apply. However, if you have a yearly lease, this may be important. It is not uncommon for a lease agreement to have a number of clauses dedicated to handling early termination. It is not uncommon for a lease agreement to have a number of clauses dedicated to handling early termination. Landlords will often charge early termination fees when the tenant decides to break the lease early. This can be around 1 to 3 months' rent. Number 10, can I sublet the property? Subletting a property is essentially renting it out to another tenant by the original tenant. Sometimes when things don't go as planned, it is important for the tenant to know their options. However, it is important to know whether or not subletting is allowed by asking the landlord. Number 11, is renter's insurance required? Some landlords require their tenants to have renter's insurance when renting out their property. Although this is not too common, it is important to know before starting to rent. Even if it's not a requirement, however, you may want to consider investing in it. This insurance will cover the cost of all possessions lost or damaged in the property for only around $15 to $30 a month. Number 12, how soon can I move in? Although the landlord is actively searching for tenants, it does not mean that they are ready for a renter to move in. For this reason, it is a good idea to ask when the landlord expects the tenant to move into the property. Sometimes that date is later than expected and can put off the tenant's plans. Some landlords charge application fees that cover things like background checks and the screening process. At this stage, you should have been made aware of any application fees. However, if you have not, it is important to ask your potential landlord to make sure nothing comes up as a surprise. Number 14, will I be able to renew the lease? Although many landlords will not complain about a tenant renewing the lease, some may have other ideas. Sometimes a landlord is planning on selling the property after some time. In these cases, it is important that the tenant knows that they will not be able to renew the lease. A renter may also inquire about the possibility of transitioning to a month-to-month lease. However, these typically cost more than a yearly lease, so it may not be ideal for long-term renters. Number 15, what is the guest policy? Many landlords do not allow others to stay in the property for an extended period of time. This is due to them not being on a lease and potentially becoming a liability. If you plan on having a partner stay in the property or anyone else, it is important to discuss this with the landlord. Sometimes they will explain that everyone staying in the property must be on the lease. Other times, they may simply say that no guests are allowed in the property for too long. Number 16, will the rent ever increase or decrease? Since apartment prices fluctuate daily, along with other property prices, it is important to have a fixed price. If the landlord guarantees that there will be no change in rent and adds it to the lease agreement, you can feel secure that the rent will never change. However, if this is not discussed and not included in the lease agreement, the tenant may be vulnerable to increases in rent. This may make paying rent impossible for the tenant and could lead to an eviction. Number 17, what changes can be made to the property? Another question that should always be asked is whether or not you are allowed to make changes to the property. Typically, the tenant has very limited freedom in terms of the changes they can make to the property. However, the landlord may consider allowing changes if it benefits the property. This could include painting, changing furniture, or anything else approved by the landlord. Number 18, how do maintenance requests work? Maintenance requests are very important to discuss with the landlord because they can happen at any time. During the tenancy, issues may arise with part of the property and maintenance could be required. At this point, the tenant should know exactly how to report this issue and get it fixed. Number 19, are locks changed between tenants? Locks and keys are typically changed after a tenant moves out of the property. However, it is important to make sure with the landlord. Former tenants having access to the keys to the property can be dangerous, especially if the ending of the lease was not friendly. And number 20, how is the neighborhood? Finally, our last question on this list is in regards to the surrounding neighborhood. Although this question should have been answered with the tenant's research, it is always nice to get some insight from someone who knows more about it. If you're not sure about the information the landlord provides, you can always cross-check it with public records. We hope you found our guide on the top 20 most important questions to ask when renting a property helpful. Remember, as a renter, it is essential to be well informed and ask the right questions to ensure a satisfactory renting experience. By asking these questions, you'll get a better understanding of the rental property and what to expect during your tenancy. For more helpful tips and resources on renting, be sure to check out our blog at DoorLoop.com. And if you're a landlord looking to streamline your rental business, be sure to explore our innovative property management software. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative videos on real estate and property management.